Hey everyone, Aaron here with Elite Watersports, and well, maybe you've just signed up for your first eFoil lesson, or maybe you're just going out to shred and you want to be a little better at what you're doing because maybe you bought a board and don't have a lesson center next to you. Watch this video. We're going to go into the details to make your first experience that much better. So in this video, we're going to break down a couple different stages of your development, especially for your first eFoil lesson. eFoiling is the fastest growing water sports out there in the world, and it is made for everybody. Doesn't matter if you're a kid or if you're grandpa. It doesn't matter what physical, limitations you have. We've taken them all out on the water. We want to introduce you to one of our inflatable boards that are quite large. They're more forgiving. They're easier to stand up on. And with a little bit of forward momentum, a 200-pound rider can actually stand on this board and still have stability. That's why we use it. It's also inflatable, so it doesn't hurt as much if you happen to get hit by it. We're also using a much larger front wing, shorter mast that can go slower in the water. We're making all these decisions as far as a commercial operation to make your first experience that much easier. But first, let's go over the board itself as far as where we're standing and the stages within eFoiling. eFoiling is all about flying across the water, but we want to first set the precedence that if you think that you're going to foil in the first 5 minutes, well, let's slow down a little bit. Let's just learn how to ride the board like a surfboard. So what we're going to do first is actually get on the board, swim over to it, put our knees down like this. And in most cases, a 200-pound rider or less can be in this position, no problem, with stability and not moving in the water. If you're heavier than that, you may have to start on your stomach, get going on the board as far as 1 or 2 miles an hour, and then get to your knees. After you get to your knees, you'll learn how to ride the board through the throttle of the trigger. We'll get into the trigger and the throttling later and how that controller works. Going back to riding the board. After you start to feel comfortable going 1 to 2, maybe 5 miles an hour, we may get up to 7 to 10 miles an hour where this board starts to plane out. At that point, the foil is going to want to engage. We have to understand that we do not want to foil at this stage of the game. We just want to have fun with the board planted on the water. So if you see where I'm at on the board with the knees far forward and not way back here. If I'm way back in the back of the board, that's going to cause all the weight to be distributed to the back of the board, engaging the foil, and most likely I'm going to fly, and I don't want to do that just yet. So keeping your knees all the way forward, close enough to this joint where the hard deck and the inflatable come together. That usually works for most people. Next thing is that you have these beautiful handles, and although you have a remote in your hand, you can hold those handles to help you turn the board or lean back a little bit at slow speeds to actually turn the board much easier. After you learn to go just in a straight line, then you can start doing some carving turns, doing some S turns throughout the water, leaning to your right, leaning to your left, enjoying the board as it is designed, but with it planted on the water. As we progress, we may have you go back about an inch or so, small increments, so that when you do lean back, you can start to experience a little bit of flying where the hydrofoil is starting to engage. As soon as that foil starts to engage, you're going to fly. You're going to lift off the water, and we have to be extremely reactive to that by leaning forward and getting that board back onto the water. What we call these stages is taxi stage. That's with that board planted in the water. And now we're on that touch and go stage. That touch and go stage, again, leaning back a little bit. We'll start to raise the board out of the water. Everything will go silent because you no longer have all that water rushing past the board. And the mast is the only thing connected to the water along with the hydrofoil. After you feel that sensation, hear that sensation of you lifting off the water, you want to lean forward and plant that board back into the water. That's going to be your touch and go stage. A lot of times what we say is if you can plant that board back in the water on demand, you're ready for the next stage, and that's full flight. So the beauties of learning on your knees is that you have full stability, that you're kind of planted and anchored into the board. That's why we have to do this stage first. After you've kind of mastered that and you're getting some decent rides of you actually flying above the water and enjoying it, that's when maybe we can start going into a 1 foot up. So whether it's left foot forward or right foot forward, that's whatever you desire, or whatever you've been trained, or whatever you're natural to. If you're not sure about left foot forward or right foot forward, some different techniques we've gone through is if you jump backwards, or if somebody pushes you a little bit, which foot do you step back with? And that'll generally tell you which foot is forward. So in my case, I'm left foot forward, so I'm gonna have my left foot up, and then I'm gonna fly through or go through our stages of taxi stage, touch and go stage, and flight with 1 foot on the board. So I'll lean forward or aft. The beauties on this stage is we don't spend too much time on it because we've already mastered the feeling of the foil. And next thing is that if you look at my feet, my back foot, my toes are actually already kind of planted into the board. I'm not like this. I'm got my foot into the board. So 1 foot up, and look, I'm already sort of standing. So the first thing that happens when we have clients stand up for their first time, it happens almost every lesson, is that when they go from this kneeling position and they go to stand up, they go like this. They go straight legs. And what that usually does is it causes the foil to engage too much. And then, well, you're a rocket ship and you're breaching the water, you come tumbling down. So just remember, your first time that you stand up, nice straight away, don't do any carves. You're in this position. When you're ready to stand up, you go slow, stay low. If it gets unstable, go back down. So get up, go back down, get up, go back down. It's a little bit taxing on the legs, but in the end, it'll keep you from having any crashes and doing the typical thing of just standing up, straight legs with no stability. Now what we're gonna do is go over our location, some safety stuff, and actually get out in the water and give you the tutorial on how to ride the board while standing up out in the water. Let's get into this remote and understand how it works and use the features that's built in to our advantage. We're first going to turn it on, plus in mode. Well, that's the instructor's job, but plus in mode turns it on, and it's already going to be pre-connected to your board. After it goes through its turning on sequence, boot up sequence, now what you're going to be able to see is a lock screen. So there's going to be a lock screen. In order to unlock it, it'll actually tell you to pull the trigger once, trigger, minus, and then it's ready and it's activated. With it being activated, we can throttle and go somewhere. It's going to be defaulted into 1. That's first gear. So when you activate it, so throttle, minus, and go, you're going to actually be moving through the water. And if you're in first gear, it's only 1 to 2 miles an hour. When we want to go faster, we just want to simply keep that trigger on and press the plus button. And you want to do this in increments. You don't want to just jam on it and go plus, 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 plus. It might go up too many gears. So you want to do 1 gear at a time. And the screen will actually indicate what gear you're in. Because I'm in a lock screen and it's not connected to a board, it's just going to say 1 right now. But as soon as I activate it, you'll see 1 again, and you can go up from there. So default is first gear. The next thing is that we have our human reaction to being unstable, going too fast, or whatever the case may be, is to use the throttle. And we don't want to use the throttle. So we like to call this almost like a dead man switch. Throttle all the way full throttle, and you use the gears in order to speed up or slow down. And if you're doing this way of teaching and this way of riding, you're going to progress so much more than the guy that's going to be throttling for instability or speed. It's very hard to do that. So let's just delete that and just do full throttle, first gear, and then we'll go through the gears with plus and negative. Now, what happens if we fall off? Or what happens if we take a break and we let go of that trigger? After about 5 seconds, it'll go into a lock screen and the trigger will not work. Now, if you fall off, the board is smart. The board knows that you have crashed and it'll go automatically into the lock sequence. But it's still best to go ahead and let go of the throttle completely if you know the inevitable is happening, you're crashing, and you're disembarking from your board, whether it's graceful or not. So the next thing is that if this remote is underwater at all, within 1 inch, it will not have any signal to the board. So we want to make sure that this controller is above the water at all times. And that goes even with the board itself. If we're a heavier weight rider and we're fully sinking the board underwater, if we don't have the nose of the board above the water, no signal is going to get to the actual brains. It's not going to know what to do. So it's just going to be stuck in the lock position. All right, so now that you understand the control a little bit better, let's get out to the edge of the beach and we'll look at our locations and go over some safety stuff. Location, location, location. It is imperative that you understand your location. Where are the sandbars, oyster bars, deep water, boat channels, stuff like that. Now, your instructor will go through that for you so you have a broad overview. But if you can understand your location a little bit better, you'll kind of have guidelines or boundaries of where you should and shouldn't go. Most likely, you're going to end up somewhere over here in Southside St. Petersburg. Where we're filming is the West Side Skyway Bridge. And we know that deep water exists from our launch point north. But if we go south at all, it's going to be in shallow water. And your instructor will go over that. A little pro tip is go on to Google Maps. If you can see the bottom on Google Maps, it's too shallow to eFoil. These things are anywhere from $7,000 to $20,000, and they're not made to hit the bottom, especially repeatedly. So first time around, if you do happen to hit the bottom, that's not good. And we'll warn you, but we don't want to see it again. So just be cautious and understand your surrounding and listen for the instructor's advice on where you should go and not go. So we're ready to jump in the water, but let's back up a little bit. Let's go over some safety. Number one thing is that with Elite Watersports, we offer a life jacket and a helmet. It's a requirement to wear those. So make sure you ask your instructor for the appropriate helmet and life jacket before you go out into the water. Next thing is, if you're riding the board and you feel unstable, make sure you're letting off that throttle and jumping away from the board. Make sure you clear yourself, get away from the board itself. Make sure that it's not going to hit you, so jump away from the board. Just get away from it. When in doubt, bail out. Okay, here we are. We're getting ready to do the first stage. We're just in first gear right now, full throttle. Remember, trigger minus trigger, ready to go. We're just in first gear right now. I got my knees all the way in the front. And what I'll do is go ahead and hit plus with my thumb. Now I'm on second gear. There's no magical gear, so don't get isolated or fixated on what gear you should be on. Depends on your weight, depends on your skill level, and also depends on how much battery life you have left. I'm on 2. I'm going to go to 3. You can see it slowly gets some speed. You can see that the nose is starting to really come up out of the water. If it's way up like this, that's not good, all right? It doesn't matter how fast or what gear I'm in. If I'm plowing water like this, it's not going to plane out. So what I want to do is keep that weight forward, go ahead and start getting some speed, staying on my knees. You can feel the board starting to plane out. I just want to get used to it at this nice slow speed. If I get going too fast, I'm going to go ahead and hit minus and see if I can still keep it on plane. Getting used to it, being on your knees. You can grab these handles if you want, or have a hand in the front. A lot of people do that. And then you want to start learning how to fly the board a little bit. Having your hands out and doing carving turns. Nice carving turns, getting used to the feeling of that foil, that fin underneath you. As you're feeling a little bit more confident with this, spend a couple minutes on it, like 5-10 minutes doing this. Then we can start speeding up a little bit more. At some point, you have to go fast enough in order to sustain flight. So I feel like I'm going fast enough now. I'm really planing the board out. Got some chop. And I'm going to do the same thing on my knees. So I started feeling pretty unstable there for a second. And I did that human nature of throttling down using the trigger instead of using the minus and plus. And you can see that resulted into a crash. Now that I'm back in flat water going a straight line, I'll start adding pressure to that front again and hit the plus button. You can see that if I lean back at all, it's going to want to fly. So I'll start doing that touch and go stage of flying and then putting it back down on the water. If I'm falling forward, I can put a hand on the front of the board. So flight, put it back down. Lean back, fly, put it back down. That's going to be your touch and go stage. Eventually, I can sustain flight by leaning back, getting comfortable with it, and practicing that balance on my knees. If I feel unstable, I'm just going to push the board back down onto the water. All right, let's do that turn. I'm going to lean left. All right. Now I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable and confident with it. So I'm going to go ahead and put one foot up. Keeping that hand down on the board. At this stage, I'm not too adamant about learning how to fly. Sure, I can experience that, but it's actually pretty taxing on my legs. I'm just getting ready to stand up. If I want to carve a little bit, I can do that. Just getting comfortable and confident in my abilities. And when I stand up, I get everything in position and slowly raise up. If I get unstable at all, I go back down to my hands and knees. All right, standing back up and keeping that board planted in the water. If that board's coming up, you can squeeze your legs, closer stance, and now it's a nice comfortable ride. Bending those knees a little bit, but a nice closed stance. You don't want to be in the stink bug stance. All right, I'm going to make a nice little carving turn to the left, adding pressure to my front foot, keep it down on the water. Nice closed stance. All right, as I come around, feeling a little better. All right, I'm going pretty sluggish. If I raise the board up, I'll notice that the nose is coming up pretty high. Okay, that lets me know that I'm going too slow. So I'm going to go ahead and bump it up. One more gear. After that stabilizes, I know my speed. I can raise it up. Do that touch and go, flying, and put it back down. I'm going to raise it back up by leaning back. And notice that my front leg is doing most of the work. If I bend my front leg, notice it will go down. If I extend my front leg, it'll raise it up. So this is the proper stance. You're going to have almost a straight back leg and a bent front leg. I'm also not in line with the board. I'm not straight down the middle with my feet. I have it staggered so that my back foot, the toes are almost close to the very edge of the board, and my front foot, my heel's really close to the edge of the board. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and set it down for this turn. That gives me some stability, because I'm not ready to turn and foil at the same time. All right. Okay, nice straight line. Everything feels comfortable. going a good amount of speed, and I can start raising the board up. And I just want to keep it really close to the water without touching the water. What I'm doing is looking off in the distance at the horizon. If I fixate on the water, I might lose my altitude. So the horizon's always giving you a nice reference to how high you are. All right, that's feeling really good. So now I'll do the same thing I did on my knees. I'll start carving a little bit. When you go into your turns, you'll notice that your back foot starts to pressurize a little bit, especially if you really carve into it. It's as easy as that, guys. If you really stage it out and you go through step by step to learn how to actually do it, and don't go into it too fast, thinking you're going to foil right away. If you slow down a little bit, it's going to be a lot easier for you. Let's do that nice banking turn to the left. This time flying. You can see just how graceful it is and how quiet it is when you're flying above the water. Some audible sensations are if you get too high off the water, you might hear turbulence happening from the wings behind you. And you might even notice that, well, you're standing on like a second-story building all of a sudden. That's indicators that you need to bring it back down to the water. Again, that's just bending your front leg. If your legs are really wide, you're going to really wear out your front legs. So keep the stance really close. And that actually gives you better stability rather than like wakeboarding, you want a really wide stance or surfing. So more stability with a nice close stance. All right, guys. With fliteboarding, eFoiling, here at Elite Watersports, we can make it easy for you. For any age, any background, doesn't matter who you are, we can teach you how to fliteboard eFoil. Just give us a call, 727-800-2202, or book on our website, elitewatersports.com. And our shop's always open, so if you want to go there and chat it up, do so. We'll see you on the water.